Legendary Grand Canyon is not just a colossal rupture of the Earth's crust. It is a vast encyclopedia of the planet, each page of which has been created by wind, water, fire, and time itself. Here, for millions of years, the rocks whispered their secrets to the desert winds. Here, people of different eras left ingenious messages for their descendants. And it is here that discoveries continue to occur that can simultaneously confound scientists and ignite the imagination of romantics. From the most ancient traces to the mysterious stone hand, from creatures invisible to the human eye to gigantic underground hotel chambers. Watch until the very end. It will be fascinating. And you are on the TopFacts channel. Enjoy your viewing. Sometimes nature itself bestows generous gifts upon archaeologists and geologists. In the year 2016, a massive piece of the canyon's north wall collapsed into the abyss, exposing dozens of fresh limestone slabs. As if by magic, at that moment a group of students from the University of Nevada, led by the Norwegian professor Alan Krill, happened to be on the route. The scientists' keen eye immediately detected something unusual. The surface of the boulders was covered with tiny but very clear imprints of footprints. A pair of narrow-gilled creatures resembling ancient amphibians once wandered across a moist dune. Their tracks froze in the sand more than 300 million years ago and were later locked beneath a thickness of deposits. The famous collapse turned an ordinary geological excursion into a sensational discovery. Now, paleontologists could examine the elongated fingers, the skin's structure, and even the direction in which these ancient creatures moved. Unsurprisingly, these tracks are recognized as the oldest vertebrate footprints found within the boundaries of the national park. They do not simply record the steps of long-extinct organisms, they allow us to hear how the clocks of evolution ticked in the Devonian dusk. The deeper one descends toward the channel of the Colorado River, the more the surrounding space transforms into a complex labyrinth of dark corridors and debris. It was there, in one of the side grottos, that speleologists discovered a monumental formation strikingly similar to a giant human hand. 5 massive fingers curve as if someone had tried to grasp the sky and petrified in that pose. Most astonishing is the symmetry and detail of this palm. It is so perfect that many researchers doubt its natural origin. Some suggest that in antiquity, an unknown people may have left a sacred sign for subterranean spirits. Others offer a romantic interpretation. They propose it was a beacon for those who used the tunnels as secret passages between valleys. Skeptical geologists point to the power of erosion, capable of sculpting the most fantastical forms. But until radiocarbon dating and petrographic studies deliver the final verdict, the stone palm will continue to captivate mystery seekers. When specialists examine the canyon's geological cross-section, their attention is immediately drawn to a strange gap. Between the ancient metamorphic rocks of the granite gorge and the younger Tapeats sandstone, an entire layer of Earth's record is missing. Scientists call this phenomenon the Great Unconformity. Imagine a book from which hundreds of pages have been torn out. Something similar occurred here, only the pages amount to an entire billion years. The prevailing hypothesis explains the disappearance of these strata by a period of global glaciation. Glaciers, acting like giant bulldozers, peeled away the softer sediments, carrying them for hundreds of kilometers, and revealing the harder, more ancient layers beneath. But there are alternative theories. Some researchers believe that during this blank era in the canyon region, sediment accumulation almost ceased. The future gorge floor literally laid bare its solid skeleton, awaiting the arrival of new rivers and seas. In any case, the absence of such a colossal interval turns the Grand Canyon into a grand enigma, a pause at once daunting and irresistibly alluring to scholars seeking to reconstruct the lost chapters of our planet's history. The Grand View Trail, skirting the edge of the flat mesa, leads to a unique dry cave system known as the Cave of Domes. Here everything breathes antiquity. The vaults are smooth, as if polished by invisible artisans, and the acoustics are such that a faint whisper resonates like a bell. Millions of years of wind erosion have carved out voids resembling celestial domes, and even a slender beam of flashlight reflects off the walls with a soft, pearly glow. Long ago, prospectors attempted to mine copper ore here. They left autographs scratched in charcoal and even thin metal plates as markers. Today, guides are instructed to prevent new artists. All impressions are recorded in a thick book, stored in an airtight case. Visitors brave enough to descend are granted the chance to experience absolute silence, hear their own heartbeat, and feel the grandeur of an underground universe where time appears to stand still. Long before the desert's scorching heat swept through these parts, a shallow, warm sea rippled here. Its inhabitants were nautiloids, distant ancestors of modern cuttlefish and squid. They carried spiral or elongated shells on their backs, inside which alternating gas chambers allowed the animal to regulate its buoyancy. The gentle movement of its tentacles and the measured rocking of its shell turned the nautiloid into a living dirigible of the Permian Ocean. Today, when paleontologists study the Kaibab Formation's limestone, they find shells with flawlessly preserved septa and traces of predatory bites. One particularly large specimen became the calling card for a new species. It was on the basis of this find that scientists described the morphology and behavior of the mysterious creature. Through millions of years, the pearly cross-sections of these shells shimmer in the sunlight as if preserving echoes of an underwater light long extinguished in the sands of the Permian period. In the 1930s of the previous century, archaeologists exploring the canyon's caves unearthed astonishing artifacts. Slender willow rods split along the grain and meticulously rolled into figurines of deer, sheep, and sometimes spears. Each miniature amazed with its elegance. The corners of each fold were crisp, proportions were exact, and the winding patterns formed graceful designs. Radiocarbon analysis revealed that the artifacts date from 2,000 to 4,000 years ago, and that their manufacture across different regions persisted for at least 1,500 years. Who crafted these ancient origami, and to what purpose? Perhaps they served as hunters' talismans. The deer figure summoned good fortune, while the ram provided endurance for mountain paths. There are even more romantic hypotheses. Some scholars view them as the earliest animated toys. If one spins the rod swiftly, the silhouette of the animal appears to come to life. In any event, each discovery opens a window into the psychology of ancient artisans. People deprived of modern tools could realize artistic vision with astonishing precision and patience. When the world was gripped by the uranium rush in the 1950s, developers reached even the fringes of the Grand Canyon. The first site, Orphan Mine, sits just 2 miles from Grand Canyon Village. Since then, several mines have emerged around the park, extracting yellow-gray fuel for reactors and warheads. Although a law prohibiting new licenses took effect in the year 2012, the existing operations continue, and radioactive dust knows no boundaries. Indigenous tribes and environmentalists sounded the alarm. Runoff can poison sacred springs, and radium and radon particles accumulate in bodies, causing serious illnesses. For years, volunteers and activists have measured background radiation, installed purification systems, and pursued legal action to shut down the mines before it is too late. Yet the question remains, what is the true price of the peaceful atom if an entire ecosystem bears the cost? A brief stretch of the legendary Route 66 holds a surprise for those seeking an extraordinary overnight escape. Here, at a depth of roughly 60 meters, lies a cave room dubbed the quietest motel on the planet. The walls are draped with stalactites, and a substantial double bed stands among massive columns, while lamps cast a warm amber glow that neither disturbs nor intrudes. It is said that deep within the cave, the temperature has remained nearly unchanged for millions of years, humidity is minimal, and the acoustics absorb sound to complete silence. Tourists who venture inside report that sleep comes swiftly and deeply, and dreams seem dazzlingly vivid, as if the brain, freed from external stimuli, opens new doors. In the morning, guests are raised to the surface by a cage elevator, and upon seeing the first ray of sun, the world feels transformed, as though the cavern's night has transported them beyond the bounds of time. Although Horseshoe Canyon lies outside the national park, the cultural connection between the regions is undeniable. Its Great Gallery, a pictorial panel nearly 200 meters long and up to 15 meters high, glistens with ochre-red figures resembling strange, limbless spirits. Some silhouettes elongate skyward, others sport halos, and some bear chevrons and dots within them, together constituting a unique barrier style, characteristic of the continent's southwest. Who created these images? Ancient hunters, whose camps date back to the 9th millennium before our era, may have visited here for rituals. It is believed the figures symbolize shamans entering a trance. At that moment, the artist's body dissolved, and he depicted himself devoid of limbs, as if a pure soul. Debates have raged for decades, but one astonishing fact remains. The pigments have preserved their vibrancy despite desert dust and temperature extremes. Even after an abyss of centuries, the paints seem to breathe, inviting the viewer to a silent dialogue. In the era of the last glaciation, the Grand Canyon was greener and more humid. Majestic conifer forests, lush grasses, and hidden ponds thrived. Ground sloths of the genus Shasta roamed here, slow giants as tall as a small two-story house. They leaned on powerful hind limbs to pluck leaves from high branches, and occasionally, as some zoologists believe, dragged carrion closer, diversifying their herbivorous diet. In the canyon's dry caves, researchers find not only massive bones, but also tufts of reddish fur and remarkably fresh lumps of scat. It is from these that scientists reconstruct the ancient colossus's diet: spores of ferns, remnants of yucca, seeds of conifers. The scent of these time capsules is sharp and grassy, as though the sloth had departed only yesterday. Examining the pellets under a microscope, biologists piece together the giant's gastronomic business card and, at the same time, gain insight into the climate of those distant years. In the year 2005, a group of biospeleologists exploring a little-known northern cavern discovered unfamiliar microscopic predators. They resemble a pocket variant of scorpion, but instead of a venomous stinger at the tail, they are armed with pincers housing toxic glands. The eyes of these creatures are reduced to barely perceptible spots. Eternal darkness has rendered vision meaningless. Only 7 years of painstaking comparative study allowed specialists to confirm the status of a new species. The body scarcely exceeds 2 millimeters in length, but each hair on the pincers detects air vibrations like a complex radar. At the slightest flutter of a passing insect, the Microscorpion lunges, injects venom, and then slowly consumes its prey, continuing its lightless existence in absolute silence. Just over a century after its scientific description, this brightly spotted frog vanished from the vast majority of its historic habitat. The cause was the drying of springs, rising temperatures, and the fungus chytridomycosis, which afflicts amphibians. Water is the frog's life. When a spring dries, the frog migrates but cannot travel far, and the population dwindles. In recent years, scientists have developed a program of amphibian refuges. They manually transfer clutches of eggs to artificial pools where water is filtered and temperature remains stable. The Churikawa Frog has become a barometer of the canyon's health. Deep within the canyon's depths, beneath crimson walls and the azure waterfalls of Havasu, lies the tiny capital of the Havasupai Reservation. Access is possible only via a steep trail stretching roughly 15 kilometers or by helicopter. 200 residents live in stone and wooden houses, cultivate corn, bake bread from blue cornmeal, and guide tourists to the turquoise pools. The Postal Service relies on mules. Several times per week, a caravan of dozens of animals descends, carrying provisions and letters. This saddlebag mail has operated flawlessly for over a century, demonstrating that even in the satellite age, there are places where speed is measured by the step of a hoof. August 2023 will be remembered by park rangers for an outbreak of Escherichia coli in the streams near Phantom Ranch, the canyon's sole hostel at the bottom. Tests revealed that the bacteria entered the waterways after intense thunderstorms washed waste from upper camps and mule manure into the streams. The Park Service urgently issued warnings, reminding visitors of the old rule. Boil water for 15 minutes, use filters and tablets, and do not rely on the crystal clarity of a mountain stream. The beauty of the Grand Canyon is matched by its harshness. A microscopic enemy can spoil an expedition, turning the dream of a hike into a struggle against dehydration. In the snow-white sandstone of the Coconino Formation, myriad rows of small three-toed footprints climb the slopes of ancient dunes. For paleogeologists, these imprints provide proof of terrestrial amphibians from the late Permian. But creationists offer a different take. They argue that such crisp tracks could only have formed in wet sand after the Great Flood. Debates have raged for decades. Geologists cite evidence of intermittent groundwater levels and periodic rains in the Permian Desert. Advocates of the biblical interpretation refer to ancient traditions. Paradoxically, these Salamander Tracks have become a stage for the dialogue between science and faith, on which neither side has yet prevailed. The stone remains a silent, yet majestic witness. When paleontologists began re-examining old bone collections cataloged as mountain lynxes, they discovered slender, elongated limbs reminiscent of African cheetahs. It turned out that the canyon once hosted its own king of speed, which went extinct at the end of the Pleistocene. New discoveries include fragments of skulls, teeth with characteristic grooves, and sharp claws. Isotopic analysis shows that the predator favored the plains along ancient rivers, where it hunted young camels and ancient antelopes. The American cheetah has helped scientists better understand how North American megafauna formed and why speed could become an advantage in glacial steppes. From the summit of the plateau, Vishnu Temple appears as a stepped pagoda. The whitish coconino layer gives way to grayish-cream kaibab limestone, between which slender cornices of red shale are visible. When the geologist romantic Clarence Dutton surveyed the canyon in the late 19th century, he perceived the peak's outline as that of an Indian sanctuary and named it in honor of the preserver of the cosmos. Today, observing Vishnu Temple in the sunset's glow, it is easy to believe you stand before a stone mantra, each layer a bead on which the planet fingered its epochs. One may discern fossilized waves, coral reef remnants, and flecks of volcanic ash along the slopes, all of which transform the mountain into a multi-volume encyclopedia open to the attentive reader. The white walls of the Coconino layer stretch across the canyon, but the thickness of this layer varies. At the center, it rises as high as a skyscraper. To the west, it resembles a three-story house, and to the east, it narrows to a slender cornice. Laboratory analysis reveals that the quartz grains are fine, polished, and rounded. They were rolled by the winds of the late Permian Desert. On the slabs, one can observe the imprints of ancient raindrops and the sharp crests of dunes. Occasional insect tracks and reptile marks appear. Once geologists discovered a dash that proved to be the imprint of a broken feather from a Permian fern-like plant. A seemingly lifeless layer suddenly transforms into a gallery of futuristic paintings, where every detail is a photograph of a moment become eternal. Grand Canyon is not only a labyrinth of stone, but also a million small traces of humanity. On the remnants of terraces, archaeologists have uncovered hearths marred by charcoal from various cultures, freshwater mollusk shells, and threads of plant fibers from which ancient women wove bags. Approximately 6 independent traditions came and went here, leaving behind arrowheads, fragments of painted pottery, maze-pounding stones, and embers of fires where agave bread was baked. Each discovery whispers of how people carved out daily life among the canyon's majestic red walls. And each new layer reminds us our era is but one step in an endless spiral of stories. We pen our chapter, not even noticing how the wind carries away fine sand beneath our feet. The same sand that, in millions of years, may become a new stratum awaiting its Allen krill. Here concludes our episode. If you enjoyed it and would like to see the next part or something similar, let us know in the comments and give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel, and very soon a new edition on another fascinating topic will be released. In the meantime, watch one of our previous videos. Thank you for watching.